over, and if we don't hit it by a certain marker, we're not going to get on certain platforms. Anyway, hi everybody, we're live, and what a wonderful time for Windows updates to hit my PC.
Well, it is. I mean, it is slightly better than when you're giving a presentation and it suddenly goes. I've worked with some companies that do the whole mandatory update thing. Like it won't let you put it back. You're like, you must do it now. And you're like, but I'm present. Oh, there it goes. Down it.
Well,
yeah,
we
it's okay.
have a mystery guest tonight. We will reveal him.
Yes.
In about 5 to 10 minutes.
Nick is now being replaced just by a head model thing, whatever that is.
A head model. Now I could turn on my cell phone cam. There we go. See, so now it's kind of okay. But you get a little behind the scenes look at I don't want to show too much. My area is messy. And like I don't know how much you can see on the full video, but like you might not know this. I have a pegboard right here with all my tools. Just hanging out in my
organized, aren't you?
What's that?
You are proper organized. I like that.
Well, if you look at one more thing this week, you'll see what's going on with that. All right, if you allow me just a moment, you folks.
Oh, I see. Oh. I guess we should really do some notes and stuff, shouldn't we? So I need to.
It's one of those weeks where I'm really glad that we had a good head start on it.
Yes, that's it. Because I've been considering. I did a 3-hour lecture. Felt really sorry for the students because I was just talking and then I realized that I've been talking for like 2.5 hours and I hadn't given them like a loo break or anything like that. I just get so into what I was doing and I was like, oh, okay, I guess we should stop.
I mean, don't feel bad about it. It's essentially a 3-hour Barry podcast, but
it was over their lunch break, because for some reason
then you should feel bad.
It was their lunch break. I think started at 1, so it was. I did sort of 11 till 1, which was.
Okay.
Yay.
All should be right in the world.
Yes, it is. No, I thought you had a massive echo then, but you don't. So that's all good.
No. Oh, hey, all right. It's good to be back, everybody. Wow, look at that. Woo. Hey, so one thing that I couldn't tell both of you guys beforehand, we're gonna do like a 5-minute post show. It's not gonna be long. So Heidi, you can get out of here a little early tonight. Barry and I got to stick around. We got to do some recording on something else that we got planned. So it's going to be a shorter post show. So let's have all the fun in the pre-show.
Cool. I to be honest, I could do with a bit of a kip. Can I have a bit of a sleep for like 20 minutes and you can just watch me sleep for a bit? Is that all right? I'm just tired.
In the pre-show?
Yeah, it'll be fine.
You could use that 20 minutes to run down to the store and grab yourself an energy drink. I guess what's open right now, right, for you, because it's like.
Oh, thank you. That's good.
We should organize one of those.
Thanks, Heidi. That's great. Cheers.
You're welcome. We should have that the next time. I should text you which can I'm going to have on my desk, and then it can look like I'm literally handing you a can.
Do the thing. I was going to say where you pass it from side to side, but you've got to get the side right. So it's like that side to then pass it. No, wrong way. Then pass it to that way.
And then we all take a sip.
That just takes way too much coordination. But that is, we've talked about it between us before, haven't we? About doing, where you do the thing about as if you're throwing something to each other, and you chop it all into a video. That would be really cool to do. Something like a ball with human factors written on it or something. That's just.
Oh, we could do. Where's my vintage 1202 mug?
You've already broken that by throwing it once.
No, you broke it by throwing it across the pond. See, I still have my vintage.
I need to get some new ones of them, mate.
By the way, the damage in question. It's a mug of Barry's vintage logo for 1202, the
Oh,
Human Factors podcast.
One of the OGs, one of the OG logo. So, but now we've grown up a
OG.
bit. We've got a bit more professional now. We've got a better logo rather than one I just hacked together on the internet with a logo that I still just hacked together on. Oh no, I think I paid for that. Yeah. But yeah, so I need to get some new mugs made because I was going to get some mugs made as well that says I was a guest on, and give them out to all the people who've been guests. And then I realized I've been interviewing quite a lot of people. And that'd be quite expensive.
That would be very expensive.
So I was thinking about
we just for Human Factors Cast, we just hold like a little nice section of our website that says, "Here's all the guests that we've had."
Oh, I do that as well. But the just something a bit because if you could do it, and then because you see my glittery stickers, because my glittery stickers are cool, but I still haven't given them out to anybody because it was in the bag of the cables that was meant to go to conference with me. Well, Heidi's suddenly got very excited.
No,
Why?
Barry, I deleted your comments.
Which comments?
On which one? Oh yeah, I just don't exist anymore. Thanks.
Whoopsie daisy. Sorry.
Undo.
Control.
Undo.
I was doing some editing the other day, and I've learned the value of Control Z. It's such a useful shortcut. Okay, I'll fix it, Heidi. It's okay. You come in here, tramping around, tramping all over my nose.
Yikes.
Said that because it was such a deep and meaningful note as
Comment.
well. So yes, out of the blurbs, I'll read the first blurb, and I think that'll be the right one to do.
Thanks. So to let everybody in on the secret, we have a new secretary. It's taken a lot of the work that I used to do, and I had an example of how I would go through this article, truncate it, and basically write the blurb. And the secretary comes back and creates something better than I did. And so Barry's choosing the thing that the secretary did.
Well, am I? Let me just
take a look. It's okay. I won't be offended either way.
You make it sound like I should care. Oh, sorry. Just said that out loud. It's going to be one of them sort of shows, people. It's been a long day. I'm short on sleep. Actually, just before coming down to the end of the garden, I was we were in the house watching TV, and we were meant to be catching up on some episodes of things that we haven't watched because I've been away. And both me and Amanda fell asleep on the sofa, woke up just to see who was getting kicked out, because reality TV show, to see who was getting kicked out at that point. And it was like, we haven't actually watched any of this, but all we've seen is now the spoiler of who gets kicked out, so it's pointless to go back and watch it all again. That means I had half an hour's sleep, so I'm buzzing. Right.
That's great. I have a CPAP, and my regular mask got recalled.
Right.
So I've had to adjust to this new mask, and this is like night 2 on new mask, and new mask is just. I probably gotta collect it. You know what? Let's consult the fitness tracker. What does the fitness tracker say I got in terms of sleep last night? Because it was bad. I haven't had an energy drink in 4 weeks, and I'm very proud of that. I'm not proud that I went out and got one this morning, but it happened.
Bad Nick.
But
bad Nick moves on.
But again, remember what I told you before we started, is that this has been a day that has been incredibly productive. I've not had a day like this in a long time, and I'm wondering if the caffeine helps with the medication to some degree. Just like, wow, I got so much stuff done. I got a lot done.
So there's a correlation causation thing there, isn't there?
Could be. So it says I got 4 hours and 51 minutes of sleep. However, what's the breakdown? 54% of that was spent light, so 3 hours and 6 minutes was light sleep. I only got 58 minutes of deep sleep. 53 minutes I spent awake of that 4 hours and 51 minutes. So it was bad.
I don't track my sleep just purely for them reasons that I think I'll be chasing. Because I've got some friends who are like, "Oh, I didn't sleep well last night." Okay, why did you not sleep well? Oh, well, I woke up at 1 o'clock and that, and I was between 1 and 10 past. I was tossing and turning. Like, you woke up and you spent 10 minutes awake, and I dream of nights like that. Normally, if I wake up in the middle of the night, then it's like half an hour of like reading or whatever to go back to sleep. I just get jealous of other people's sleep patterns. It's also a good driver that I actually need to do more exercise, get out more, and get away from my desk. But you know, all these things, I know the answer. I just refusing to do it. I'm putting some of your words into to complement the secretary's words because I think they missed out some important facts. Or
okay,
the last bit.
Look, I ain't mad. We brought the secretary on for a reason, and the reason we keep referring to it as the secretary, we don't want to say their name. So
well, they want to be a behind the scenes supporter of the show.
Yes, we'll put it that way.
And that's quite factual as well. I like that. So let's bring that up.
Oh.
This music makes me feel like I'm at
some sort of an end of night trance club.
I was gonna say like a Supercuts, which is a chain haircut place.
Yeah.
Wait, that's weird.
Oh, that needs to move. Go down here. Let's go left and right.
All right, how are we doing on notes, by the way? Let's do a quick check-in. Barry, are you good?
Not yet. I will be in
Okay.
a couple of minutes.
All right.
I need to read this through.
Heidi, how about you? Are you all good on your end, or do you have anything?
Yeah, the first one didn't really catch me, so I'm like gonna take the lead from you guys because I'm not sure what the point. Like, I'm not sure what their challenges are, so I'm gonna take your lead. It came from. You know,
right.
Oh. Okay, yeah. I'll pass to Barry then first, and then Barry can pass to Heidi. You can pass to me on that first one then.
Or Barry can pass to Nick, and Nick can pass to Heidi.
Oh, I need to go last. It's a rule because then it allows me to go into the next one and control certain aspects of the production.
I was just joking.
Yes, that's that one, isn't it? I'm just
Heidi, I think the only other thing that I need from you is sort of your initial thoughts at the top, unless you got them in your head. And
yeah, I have. Yeah, it's obviously a topic that like lives in my head because of what it is.
I figured
but
you requested
I'll jot
it. So.
them. Yeah, I'll jot them down.
Okay.
I forgot that part. Yeah.
Yeah, I figured that you probably wouldn't need much. I'm very happy that you're on the show today. We selected this topic at your request, so we didn't even put out a poll this week. That's kind of the unspoken rule, is that we can override polls if there's a guest with knowledgeable insights that wants to come on and talk about it. I think that's kind of an unspoken rule, and I think listeners appreciate that.
Well, hold on a second. Are you trying to say I'm not knowledgeable? You don't let me choose my topics?
Yes.
Right, okay. Just checking.
Barry, I'm trying to say you're a regular fixture, and you get dealt like the cards that I get dealt. And for folks who are guest fixtures, we should say, or guest panelists, if they look, Barry, I'll tell you what. If you see something come through the news that you're like, I want to talk about this, hands down, no other story is gonna make it, you let me know, and we can talk about it.
I don't want special treatment. It's fine. It's I'm just a regular fixture and fitting, just fitting into the background. Gravity is the wrong word. Word. Hill. Or compassion either, which a lot of people would agree with.
Oh. Shoot. I need to make
that. I have to say, in the source article, that's a really cool picture of the cockpit. I really like it.
Yeah? Let me see. I didn't even pay attention to that one.
Do you like the one I picked? It's royalty free.
On LinkedIn?
I don't think I've seen it. Have I seen
Oh,
it?
the one at the very top of the dock.
Oh, I see. Sorry. Yeah, let's go. Yeah, that's definitely a royalty free photo, isn't it? You can tell.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Gets the
In
point
fact, what is
across.
that? That looks like some like an MD 150. Fairly sure that's McDonnell Douglas.
This is where my knowledge as a plane guy breaks down. I'm not a plane aviation geek. Like I feel passionate about it. I wanted to be a commercial airline pilot when I was 5 years old.
Well, don't we all?
Oh, I can bring a little misogyny in it too. I was
awesome.
never even allowed to aspire to be a pilot. I was told I need to be a flight attendant. So, as a girl, you didn't even aspire to be in the pilot. You aspired to be in the flight attendant.
And what's wrong with that? I'm failing to see the.
Well, no, it's just like
I'm joking. Kind of.
You didn't. Well, I know you're joking,
No, you're
but like
right.
you didn't even like go, like you didn't even move your brain like to that, like, oh wait, I can fly the plane too, you know.
It was really interesting because my younger daughter tried to was it Holly who did it? Anyway, tried to tell me one of these jokes of was it a boy got knocked over and father the boy father and a son were in an accident and father died and the son got taken to hospital, and so when the son got took to hospital and went into the ER, the doctor operated on the son, and the doctor said, "I've saved my son. That's brilliant. How was that possible?" I told that really badly, but hopefully you get the idea. And most people don't get that the surgeon was actually the son's mother rather than the father. All misogynistic. Sorry.
Nick, I just read your comment.
Where are you writing comments?
Where?
in Restream.
Oh, that.
I mean, I'm even sitting in my old.
Oh, and see, but I think I've got no problem with that sort of stuff because it sparks conversations. And I think what's that?
This is my old pilot seat.
That's cool.
That's awesome.
So, this is my, because you gotta wear, these are all the things like nobody knows about, but like this is a booster seat basically. It's for when you're not tall enough.
Yeah.
So you have to sit on the booster seat so you can reach the pedal. And I had rudder pedal extensions in flight training, which are horribly orange colored. So whenever you saw a mechanic walk on the ramp with the two orange thingies, you knew there was somebody who wasn't tall enough to reach the flight controls.
Oh. So what are they, just like blocks that will go onto the rudder pedals?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they look like you know the things you had when you learned how to ride a bike, the
Yeah.
big to put your foot in, those big things, and they have a little arm and they have this big orange thing and they connect it to the pedal on the floor so it's longer, but it still moves the same way.
Cool.
Because otherwise I can't steer the plane. So, I mean the rudder.
Yeah,
I can
yeah.
reach the flight controls, but I can't reach the rudder. Yeah.
Hey
Very
Barry,
special time.
a quick note here: when you pass after the story to Heidi, make sure that you cite experience rather than like generic thoughts. Like this is the whole reason we have Heidi on the show. As a pilot, right? You can speak to it from that perspective, or at least from.
Flight
Did you ever
training,
become?
yeah.
Did you ever become like a full certified pilot, or do you go through flight training, or like what is your history? And maybe that is a good point for you to just kind of like leave off with is, Heidi, you have experience in the field. What is your experience? And then give us your thoughts, right? Because I do want to make sure that people are aware. So I'm not even sure. I don't even know the full wealth of your knowledge, and that'd be helpful context as you're talking about. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, no, I can give the full like story. It's not a long story. It's just like there's reasons why I ended up not pursuing it anymore. And some of them have to do with exactly what we talk about today.
Yeah. That's great.
And the medical restrictions that gets put on you, leading to a very unhealthy kind of lifestyle if the surroundings are not okay, right? Like, because it's so nuanced, right? Because somebody who might have never had like a mental health issue in their entire life, like they can power through it and everything is glorious, right? Like they have this like it's nothing but ambition and all these things, but yeah.
I'm my wife's making me sit through Schitt's Creek, and there's an episode early on where David is having a panic attack and he doesn't realize he's having a panic attack. He's like, "Oh, those are fake. That's what something just celebrities make up to get out of it." He's like, "No, you're having a panic attack." And your comment about mental health made me think of that.
I tried to get into Schitt's Creek. I watched episodes because I was forced doing them, but it just wasn't my bag.
So the first time I tried watching Schitt's Creek, I got through about 4 episodes, and this was during a time in my life where I was on a business trip where I was kind of stuck in a hotel, not by choice, but based on circumstance. I couldn't get access to a certain thing that I needed access to get anything done. And so I was watching a show about people stuck in a motel, and it just didn't hit right then, but now it's hitting right.
Fair enough. So, because I'm looking for two new things, new sort of series to watch. Because I've kind of watched all the stuff I want to watch at the moment, but also new fiction books to read. Because I'm sort of out. Because I do read books I like. I read over and over again. So things like Hornblower and stuff like that. If you've heard of any of them, so I do that. But I need to get into some new stuff.
Have you watched For All of Mankind?
What's that about? It does sound familiar. But...
The Apple show?
Oh, no, not yet. No. Is that good? Okay. I'll take that as a strong thing. Oh, actually, we've been
It's like the parallel history, right? Where they alter the history, where every event that we remember, they turn it around and make it the other.
Oh, cool. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
That
so like
good.
it wasn't the Americans who landed on the moon. The Russians beat us, and it wasn't this and this. He didn't get elected. He got elected. Like it's like a parallel universe kind of thing.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I'll have to give that a go. Sounds good.
Yeah. Well, especially it's got. I mean, come on. It's got science, aviation, rocket ships, like everything. Like I'm just sitting there geeking out. Like
What could you possibly want?
Yeah, and then like going, oh, my friend works at that site. Like, does it still look the same? Let me text her.
Cool.
It's just so stupid.
Oh,
We just got done rewatching The Good Place. I don't know if you've seen that one.
yeah. I got so far through it, and I know, I guess, the twist, and that sort of
There's
stuff.
multiple twists.
Yeah, I sort of got so far through it, and I give it. My wife's watched all of it. She thinks the problem is that with a lot of them that go on for like series and series and series, I kind of lose interest because you're like,
Oh, The Good Place only has 4 seasons.
The Good Place is 4 seasons. I consider it to be one of the most tightly expertly crafted pieces of television out there. For a sitcom, it is just insane the amount of story that they fit into one season, and every season the paradigm shifts so greatly. And like the reason I even got into The Good Place in the first place, the TV show, who knows about real life, but the reason I got into watching this to begin with is because I knew the twist at the very end of the first season. I was like, how do they get there from this? And then, watching it, I still didn't even connect the dots until the very last, kind of couple seconds of the first season. I'm like, wow, okay, wow, where are they going to go with this? And then something happens and you're just like, wait, did that all not, where are they going to go from here? And then the same thing at the end of the third season or second season. And then at the end of the third season too, it's the same thing. It's just the scope just goes in a different direction every time, but it's so rewarding. Like, I don't know, I had ugly cries at the end the first time, ugly cries at the end the second time. It's just, it ends perfectly.
I still cry.
It's a good series. It's a good series.
It's funny that you bring up The Good Place. That is my ADHD show. So that's the show I fall asleep to every single night. I've seen every episode probably 400 times. I mean, I'm not joking. Like, I don't know how many times if you've watched something for years every night,
Yeah.
But it's one of those shows that it's on a level. I'm not even sure if the writer even intended that, but there's so many things they did in the show that are so friendly to people who suffer from anxiety, who suffer from ADHD, who suffer from any kind of mental stress related like health issue, because there's no cursing, there's no volume raising, there's no active demolition in it. So the volume and the pitch always stays in a happy place. There's no screaming where you're like shook, right? And the storyline is very carrying, so you're not sitting on the edge of your seat like to find out what it is, but you're also not like bored because it's not entertaining.
Yeah.
And the dialogue in it is so good. It's just like, it's that
A+.
in the end, yeah.
A+. Barry needs to watch it.
Yeah, and it's one of the only shows that I've ever watched where I was sad it was only 4 seasons, but the end made sense. And
it's a perfect ending.
And it is a perfect storyline all over all the seasons together. It's like, yeah, that's how it should have ended.
Cool. Just on a technical note, because I guess we're just about to go.
Oh yeah.
The chat link or the chat box I've just had has come up as saying, looks like your Reddit link is invalid. Has either of you two got that in the public chat?
Looks like a what link is?
It looks like your embedded link is invalid. Visit the chat settings and grab a new one. I'm like, I don't know whether just to refresh.
We're not embedded anywhere, so we're good.
No, but it basically means if you still got the chat stuff coming up in your chat things in the public chat, then that's good. I just won't have that. So
I'm good. Yep. All right. Hey everybody, we're gonna be right back. We're gonna start the show right after this.
Welcome to Human Factors Cast, your weekly podcast for human factors, psychology, and design.
Yes, hello, hi. Hi, it's episode 220, 266. We've done a lot of these. We're recording this live on episode, wow. All right, you know what? Cut. Let's do it again. I
Start
did this
over.
last week, too.
Try again. I love the professionalism here. It's brilliant.
All right, anyway. Hi, hello, hi. It's episode 266. We're recording this live on December 8th, 2022. This is Human Factors Cast. I'm your host, Nick Roome. I'm joined today by two of my esteemed colleagues, Mr. Barry Kirby, who's here every week. Hey, Barry, what's up? And we also have Heidi Mehrzad back on the show. Heidi, welcome back.
Hello.
I'm so happy to have you on this week, especially because this was kind of requested by you. We'll get into it in just a minute. But to give you a preview, we got a great show for y'all tonight. We're going to be talking about the system that keeps pilots from seeking mental health care. We're also going to answer some questions from the community about getting assigned the wrong job title at a new gig, beginner jobs before human factors, and problematic or dangerous pop science being used by others. But first, we got some programming notes. Hey, you know what? We have mentioned this a while back at HFES. If you're unfamiliar, we have made an announcement that Human Factors Minute, our traditionally supporter-only podcast, is now going public early next year. So it'll be March 1st. We have a blog post where you can read more. Details are all on our website there. And next week, we'll have a deep dive into the human factors of fitness technology. That's a good read by one of our lab members. Morgan worked really hard on that. So go check that out. If you're interested in fitness technology and human factors, there's a lot of intersection there that you might not know about. Barry, what is going on over at 1202, though?
So at 12:02, we've got an interview with Tina Worthy. And those of you who are members of the Chad Institute of Ergonomics and Human Factors will know who Tina is, because she is one of these driving forces behind the entire institution. So I tried to spend half an hour with her an hour with her to try and dive into, get some goss from the background, to work out what goes on behind the scenes, and try and get some stories. But she didn't really let anything spill, but she gave us some really good insights into just how she works with the volunteers, how she works with the wider organization, and just how much they deliver, considering it's such a small organization. So if you go over to 1202 after you've listened to this, don't go yet, go after this, go and have a listen to that and hear what Tina's got to say.
I'm so disappointed she didn't give you any hot goss. Anyway, let's get into the news. That's why you're here, right? Let's get them. Jumpy fingers hitting the button a little too late. Yeah, this is the part of the show all about human factors news. Barry, what is the story this week?
So this week we talked about the need to change the system that keeps pilots from seeking mental health care. So a recent study of over 3,500 US pilots found that 56% reported avoiding healthcare, specifically to avoiding losing their clearance to fly. This fear is driven by the Federal Aviation Administration, or FAA, regulations which bar pilots from flying if they report seeking regular talk therapy for even mild anxiety or depression. This can last for months or even years, and the assumption is that they pose an unacceptable risk to safety. As a result, pilots find themselves among only a handful of professions that require the disclosure of any encounter with the healthcare system, including mental health visits. This can cause pilots to suffer in silence, and the fear of losing their job can prevent them from seeking the help they need. 26% of pilots reported that they withheld information during their FAA health checkups for the same reason, that fear of losing their medical clearance. This issue is likely to be exacerbated by the growing demand for pilots, which is expected to lead to more time away from family and friends, and an increased need for mental health care services. Whilst credit is due to the FAA for recently making several positive policy changes related to mental health, this study would suggest that there is still an awful lot more work to do, and time is of the essence. So Heidi, as someone who's experienced in this field, what's your reflections on the story?
Yeah, so this hits real home for me. So I'm a graduate of Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University, and I went through the flight training there with the goal of being a pilot. Admittedly, initially, I did not want to be a commercial pilot. Never was my aspiration. I always wanted to be a fighter pilot. And couldn't make it, couldn't cut it. just took years for me to kind of reconcile with the fact that I just couldn't cut it. But one of the reasons why I couldn't seek help to understand like why ambition wasn't enough, why training wasn't enough, why all these things weren't enough was these this this underlying issue, this deep-rooted issue of mental health being something that is not talked about. And so this article, interesting, speaks about how pilots don't report it, right? And how pilots kind of get barred from it. But this actually starts in flight training, right? So the very first time you have to go and get your medical certificate in order to fly, it's the very first time you're confronted with that rumor mill, that talk, right? Do not mention XYZ, right? Don't talk about that. Don't talk about this. Like they're not going to give you your medical. So even as a flight student, you're already like pushed into that. You don't speak about anything. You don't mention it. It can't be in your health record. So from that perspective, what happens when you need help, right? And you know it can't go on your health record. What do? You seek alternates, right? Alternative ideas. And while some of them can be very rewarding, like I ended up having to see, so in order to avoid having it in my medical record, I ended up seeing the campus like counseling center that isn't run by doctors, instead just like therapy licensed people, right? So you would go and see them and just talk, but you're just talking about like college life and like, and so that's how I got like under the radar therapy. But it was very clear very soon that I also needed, for some of my mood instabilities, I needed medication. But I couldn't get that medication. So then what I had to do was seek a doctor outside of the network and outside of my medical certificate to give me the prescription. So you're hiding the prescription, you're hiding your mental health, and you can't speak about it. So if you're already doing that in flight training, what do you think is going to happen when you get to the level where you're working for an airline, you want to be promoted, right? All these things. So, and there's like, and you guys are going to have to rein me in at some point because I can go on and on and on because it touches on so many things. It's not just that, it's also there's the 1500 hour minimum that you need to hit, right? So in order to even get a regional job or any kind of job in the cockpit, right, you have to have a minimum in hours. That minimum in hours, you have to finance that. Like
Mm-hmm.
you're financing that. So the only way really to logically do that in order to still make money and not have to pay for the hour in your logbook is to be a flight instructor. Well, now you're being a flight instructor and you're flying from dusk till dawn, right? So you're always flying, you're always stressed, you're always busy, and you're doing this while you're very young because you want to accumulate your hours. So you're also still in college. Most of them are still in college. I mean, I'm gonna say not everybody has the privilege to go to like a flight aeronautical university like I did, like where everybody lives and breathes it, right? Where there is also the positive side of it, right? Like there are people who perpetuate positive things like living a healthy lifestyle and all these things, right? But nobody tells you in flight training that you should work out and eat healthy, right? Nobody does that, right? Everybody just wants you to perform, right? So there's this like dichotomy between having a healthy lifestyle and having a healthy surrounding in order to further your mental health, but that's just not the case. You work crazy hours, you're constantly being pushed up and down from your circadian rhythm, right? So what if you work 3 days on, 2 days off, you fly at 4 a.m. in the morning, you have showtime, and then in 7 days you have a night flight, and so you're also constantly switching. then there's the hour minimums the airlines give you, right? They might promise you 75 hours like this month, but what if they can't promise you that next month and you saw the schedule come out? So now you're trying to book in more hours, right? So now you're flying to the exhaustion point, right? And so there's like so many things that come into game with that. And then you add on the pressure of making a living. So what most people don't know is that like when you start off, like Delta pays, I think Delta was one of the worst ones, but like I don't know what the current figures are. I tried to look them up, but even the ones I found now are like a little bit old. But like Delta only pays $27,000 your first year. So like you qualify for food stamps. You qualify for assistance. So what do these pilots do? They then you have to be available in the hub where you get hired, right? So hub means like where do they have their main station basically, like, and so you often what I back in the day, again, this could have changed. This was 10 years ago, but back 10 years ago, it was very common for these new pilots to then like rent a room in a hub house. So like you have like 10 roommates, you're circulating through these hub houses because you need to sleep somewhere, right? And you're away from home, right? You're constantly moving, and now your mental health is declining, right? Like the environment you live this job in is not necessarily an environment that perpetuates great mental health, right? You're eating unhealthy, right? You're grabbing stuff at the airport, you're drinking caffeine to keep yourself awake, energy drinks, right? You eat these greasy meals from the airport restaurants, right? Like you're gaining weight or you're losing weight, like depending what kind of type you are in stress, right? You not all of them work out. I mean, I'd love to say, yeah, every pilot gets up in the morning and does an hour on the treadmill to keep their circulation going, right? But that's just not the fact. What if you did a 12-hour and you get home and you're just like, oh my God, I just want to rest for 2 days, like, and you fall, into that rhythm. So I think there's just a lot of things that, yeah, that article speaks to them underreporting their mental health issues, but what actually led to that? Like, where does this come from? And that's why, like, Nick, if you're gonna do this topic, let me be on, because like
Yeah.
it starts in flight training. Like it literally starts at the beginning where you really are hammered in, like, do not say this. This is a trigger word. Don't mention that. I mean, some don't even report their backaches and their knee issues, right? Because if that gets there and then now you can't fly. Now they bar you from flying, right? Like, but the funny thing is, I mean, funny is the wrong word, but for lack of a better term, is talk therapy could actually be something that helps, right? Like in this situation, like there could be a therapist who could literally walk you through some of your challenges you have, right? Like what if it's the I'm stuck in my career, right? Like I still haven't made captain, or or they're running a horrible schedule. I don't know what I should do because if I switch airlines, I lose seniority again. Like it's also something the public isn't really familiar with. Like it's not just how long have you been in your job. Your years don't translate. You start with seniority again all over with the next airline, right? You drop in seniority. And so there's just a lot of things that this industry is just it's so tight knit, like how it works against you. And reporting is just something that is not supported in that industry. Like whether it is your mental health or, let's be very honest, even mishaps. Like not a lot of people report if they had an issue, right? They're supposed to, and supposed to be anonymous, right? But not everybody does. So there's a lot of stuff that goes under, and then I mean, not to bring up the most horrific incidences, but like then you see things happen like a couple of years ago when the pilot literally committed suicide by flying the plane into the mountain, right? There were over 100 passengers or over 200 passengers on the aircraft, right? So where did that come from? That didn't fester overnight. That didn't happen overnight. It's the environment they live in that this happens in. So I think there's a big conversation to be had, but at the same time, it is 20, 2022. I was in flight training in 2006, and this has been something that has been since the 70s, 60s. So it's never changed. It hasn't changed. I don't see the particular steps. I hope it's getting better. Again, I've been out of the aviation industry now for 10 years, so I don't know what has happened over the last 10 years. I just know that the issues they deal with, they're still there. I mean, the hours, the crazy contracts that the airlines give, where they don't even have to promise you hours. They give you 0-hour contracts. Um, Also something the public isn't very familiar with, right? That they can get away with that. They can give you 0-hour contracts. But then there's also things that where the world kind of pushes you. So from my research that I did coming into today, apparently there's been this huge shift in salaries, right? So post-pandemic now with the pilot shortage, which there's always been a pilot shortage. This is just fascinating that there's now one. There's always been one. Um, it the, that they're now paying these. I mean, I saw some of the salaries. I'm like, holy moly! Like, had I been promised a salary like that, I might have not, give it up so quickly, right? But but I just know that like it's a very it's a very personal story for me because I didn't make it, I didn't cut it, and good Lord, Instagram or YouTube or however, feel free to hammer the comments full with, well, you weren't good enough and da da da, and whatever. I like dust it off now, but it is something that I struggled with, and I really would have loved if I had that support because I really truly believe like it might have been a different outcome for me and might have been able to continue my ambition I had. I always wanted to be a medevac pilot. That was my dream, and I couldn't make it because I didn't see how I was ever going to have a life where I do struggle with mental health. And when I'm in my routine and my therapy and everything, like I live just like anybody else, right? I'm just as successful or unsuccessful, you know, as
Feel that one.
anybody else, right? But like, but I have the same struggles, I ate too much over Thanksgiving and all these things. But like, but I'm fine. And in the aviation industry, I would not be given that. I can't go and be in talk therapy and seeking regular mental health support. And so what happens is these pilots self-medicate. It's it's a known fact. You can pull up the statistics. Alcoholism is very, very prevalent amongst pilots. Self-medication with prescription medication, very, very prevalent. Upper downers, right? You take an upper to be there. You take a downer to go to sleep because you have to get your sleep in because your next 12-hour shift is coming or the next flight is coming. Um, and I mean, I know that there's like, I don't want to scare people, but I've heard of like tricks and tips of like how to get rid of this and how to get rid of that. And I'm not going to reveal all of it because I think it's too
Reveal none of
scary
it.
to the public. Yeah. But, but I mean, it's just like any other job. And I want people to really think about that for a moment, right? It's just like your surgeon. Is your surgeon right now self-medicating? Is your doctor, your Lyft driver, Like there's so many things where you are in a situation, your bus driver, you know, there's so many situations where you trust somebody else with your safety, and you got to count that that person lives in or works in an environment that supports them being well. And I don't think the aviation industry is. So that's my big issue with it. Like, I would love to see a lot change, but I think in order for that to happen, I think we need to start acknowledging that mental health is just as common of a illness, disease. Like, I don't like those words, because it's like, you know, if you have, somebody said something the other day that was very interesting to me. Like, somebody said, like, if you have diabetes, right? Like, and you're gonna say, well, in our environment, we don't take insulin. Okay? And that's kind of with the mental health. Like, okay, I have mental health issues. Well, in our environment, we don't medicate and we don't seek therapy, so you better tough it out, right? Like, what do you think is gonna happen? We're human. We're all human. We all have our struggles. And whether it is a temporary um, episode you're going through, right, and temporary sadness, a temporary grief, or um, whatever it is, a life tragedy that happens, life event, like, a lot of people also don't understand mental health fully. So, like, it can be things that are very common, life events that might have a different trigger effect on somebody than on the other, right? So you might be going through something for a while, but, you know, if you get the right help, you come out of it again. But if you don't, you can spiral into an extreme darkness. And then what? You know, how do you get yourself out of that? And so that's kind of the thing that I really just wonder, what are we doing? You know, and so, like,
Yeah.
what are your thoughts?
Yeah. Well, that was a very concise initial thoughts, Heidi. I can't wait to get into the detailed discussion. No, honestly, you know,
Yeah.
we kind of bounce around here at the beginning normally, but I felt like today it was really important to get your opinion on this, because this is something that you've lived through. This is something that you have experience with. For me, I don't really have any insight into this. Like, I put sarcastically in here, real positive and uplifting story this week. And yikes, I had no idea about this. This sucks. Like, this is awful that
Yeah.
these pilots are in this system that they can't get out of, because this is what they want to do. And then by the time, if they do want to switch gears, you know, then they might need to uproot their whole career and go into something else. And it's just, it sucks to be trapped in this system. But Barry, I see you got a couple notes here. I want to make sure you have some time to talk about your notes here.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, I mean, it's, I think Heidi's done a really good job in summing the breadth of the issues up. But fundamentally, for me, it boils down to, we just don't deal with mental health. We don't give the compassion it deserves, because it's largely still unknown. We you know, the stuff we don't know about our own brains, I just find phenomenal, about the fact that we don't still truly know how they work, um how we can deal with them. As Heidi's example, I thought was brilliant, where you know, if you've got any other sort of injury, if you've got need pain relief, you'll take some pain relief. Brilliant. That's great. But as soon as we start going, well, we need to do something around the way our brain's working, because in effect, it's okay, it's not a muscle, but it is something that needs exercise. It's something that we work with, and it's just got all that stigma wrapped around it. I do think that it's a generational thing as well. I note now that I think the younger generations talk about mental health with a lot more openness and a lot more compassion, a lot more not selfishness, a lot more self-awareness, around how they are doing, what they're doing, which I think is brilliant. They're certainly, I know, the students and my own children as well will talk about their own mental health in a lot more open fashion than I ever would, and I ever do. The I guess an example. So, whilst the example we're using here is obviously is around pilots, it isn't just pilots. We alluded to the fact that there are other professions out there, and I remember getting a briefing not too long ago. It must have been about 4 years ago, where the workplace I was in turned around and said, mental health is really, really important, and we will support you. We have helplines, we have this, we have that to support you. If you've got any problems, feel free to use these resources. Then it's almost like in the afternote small print of, but also just remember, if you have serious mental health problems and you report them to us, then we will have to consider whether we need to report them to the security authorities
No.
about your and that might have an effect on your security clearance. So it's exactly the same thing where they're saying, yes, we want to support you. We want your mental health is important. However, there's a massive consequence if you even mention it to us. And I don't think that's actually changed a vast amount. So yes, I mean this story is it's really interesting. Obviously the air domain is something I've been around for an awfully long time, and seeing that whole you have a whole pilot attitude, and you can see it starts right from the beginning, because there is a level of arrogance. There is an element of look at what we've achieved, because it is pushed into you right from the beginning. And because even just to be able to get into pilot training is a big deal. Just to be able to sit in an aircraft and take off and do that sort of stuff, it's a big deal, and it only gets bigger. And because that level of responsibility you have as well. So we can see why it's done, but we do need to break it open and allow people to talk about their mental health. I mean, if we sort of start hitting into about why we need to do that, I mean, fundamentally, one of the biggest issues here is around trust. Trust both within the system itself. So if a pilot comes and says something, that they want to be able to highlight how they're feeling, what they're doing, in order to get the right sort of support, in order for them to do the job better. But also, as we learn more about this and understand this, then where's our trust in the actual aviation industry itself? I mean, some of the stories you were telling, Heidi, really highlight the fact that if we're not supporting our pilots, why would we actually trust getting on an airplane when we don't know what sort of state that person is sat up front? I'd rather it was a lot more open and they were getting the support that they deserved. But I'm going to hand back to you now, Nick. And where do you think we should go next?
Well, there's a lot of places that we can go, and I think Heidi talked about a lot of these. And maybe we could just kind of go down the list, honestly, and see which one of the ones that we've already talked about, which one of the ones that we haven't already talked about. And when it comes to sort of the human factors engineering, the human factors piece of all this, right? We've talked about trust and sort of the confidence, not only within within the individual pilot or individual person that is controlling your life in that moment, that has your life in their hands, but the industry as a whole. If you can't trust this pilot, can you trust other pilots? Because they're all under the same system. And so this is one of the points that the article makes here, is that this system needs to change so that way we can start to build that trust again. We can tackle personal relationships. I think we talked I think, Heidi, you brought this up a little bit, but there's some of the work-life balance issues, right? When this type of career is all consuming, you're working long, irregular schedules, and sort of this impact that this might have on your personal relationships is huge, right? Because if you have a family, are you kidding me? How are you going to spend time with the people that you love when you have these irregular schedules? You got to plan it out. And then you also have the impacts of stress on those relationships. The pilots are responsible for getting people from point A to point B safely every day. And that's a huge stress when, any number of things can go wrong in an airplane. Or even on the tarmac or anything like that, and to bring that stress home with you can definitely impact your relationships and family life. And then not only that aspect of it, but being away from your family can also have a huge impact on your mental health. If you're not around the people that you love all the time, then that's going to be another factor that contributes to it. And then the isolation and lack of social support. Like, we're talking about mental health here, and thinking about that support mechanism that a therapist plays in traditional mental health therapy and medication play in traditional mental health considerations. I think those are largely absent because of the system. And then now you're looking at the social support. Sure, they have other pilots, and that's nice to commiserate, but you don't have like sort of the answers within that group. The answers are, Heidi, like you said, to self-medicate or to to breed that environment of I guess obscuring what's actually happening for fear of losing your job or being grounded or losing your wings, right? So those are some of the things that I don't know stood out to me. Maybe let's each pick one more sort of major topic, and then we'll kind of wrap this up, because Heidi, you covered so much in that, like in
Yeah.
your experience, and seriously, like that's why we had you on today. That's why.
But
Um, yeah.
but I wanted to pick something what Barry said, to be very cognizant of certain things, right? And let's be very clear. I'm not a medical doctor, nor am I a psychiatrist, right? This is from years of working in human factors, psychology, engineering, being a former flight student, training, whatever, pilot, uh, whatever you want to call that, but living that for like years and years and years, right? Um, and then also still having friends in the industry who still do it and love it passionately. And I watch them still do it, and I'm just so happy for them, right? That they're able to do it. But there's also a lot of grief, right? We like this also not talked about, like how many people actually still die in flight training, right? So I alone know of two people that while I was in flight training, two friends died, and the grief is there. And you know what happens when something like that happens? The entire community mourns, but nobody's allowed to go and seek help. Nobody. And so there's just these things. So two things that I wanted to touch up on is one thing we are now learning, and again, not a medical doctor, but just going by the research that is more and more emerging, is that our gut health actually influences depression, right? So we're finding out more and more that the hormones, the chemicals, right, that lead to depression in the gut can lead to depression overall. So what comes first, right? Chicken or egg? Was it the depression that led to the depression in the gut, or was it the depression in the gut that led to the depression overall, right? So one thing I wanted to insert there is the lifestyle that you live as a pilot with the unhealthy
Mm.
circumstances, right? The coffee, the airport food, the irregular schedule, all these things, right? That further depresses the gut. So it is not something that is perpetuating mental health, right? So so that's something. And then another thing you picked up on was that made me almost kind of, I don't know, I instantly got like this smile, and I was like, I wonder how that plays. Is you mentioned the new generation, right? The new generation speaks more openly, but let's not forget what the aviation industry is and how it's structured, right? The aviation industry is structured on seniority, right? So you, as a first officer, you do not question authority, right? You do not. Yes, we have learned more in human factors, right? In incorporating human factors in the cockpit, that we question the pilot and we do the double check decision making and all that. Yes, but seniority is still a thing. So while the new generation may think that the aviation industry is still led by the old generation, and that's not going to change for another 20, 30, 40 years, because Gen Xers, I am one, and I'm not old yet. I'm not planning on retiring anytime soon. So we still have years to go. So that is a little bit of a dichotomy in like that whole questioning seniority, right? And just to make you think, I don't want to put these thoughts into other people's heads, but this is the kind of stuff I see when I walk through an airport, right? Like when you see that older pilot, right? their uniform is sharp, their shirt is pressed, right? They usually have a higher quality shirt on. They look like they are really dressed sharply. And then you look at the younger pilots and you instantly see that shirt has been worn 100 times, has been thrown into the washer and thrown into the dryer. That does not look right. And the, you know, the tie is over here and the pants look like they need hemming. Like there is really a different world, like captain and seniority and younger, right? So that just makes me think that we still have so much to go because it needs to be led by the older generation. The younger generation can push for it, absolutely, but until the system gets a little, even just a little slightly amended, we're not going anywhere. And I think it's very sad from a human factors standpoint because human factors is such an impact in aviation, right? Like how air traffic control was designed, like how these new regulations, how they're all based on like, I mean, remember, I don't know sometimes if I mention things that are not known, but like we used to call it pilot error, right? It's not pilot error, right? So we used to blame the pilot by saying pilot error, right? But we've thankfully moved on from that. But like I just think of like the things that we learn in aviation and aeronautical environment, like in the beginning, like we learned the Swiss cheese model, the reasons, you know, the model, how little events lead to catastrophe, right? And little events can be little events in your life from a mental health aspect. So you take the little, you think they're little, but everything accumulated just is waiting for a catastrophe, right? Like you didn't sleep right for the last couple of weeks. You're not eating right, right? You're going through tensions with your family. The paycheck didn't come in, like, or whatever. Like you didn't make ends meet, or you had a medical bill or a mechanic bill you had to pay, unexpected bill. Let's just call it unexpected bill. So you have financial troubles. You have this. You have that. You have that, and everything is just lining up for a catastrophe, right? And the weird thing is, we learn this in school, aviation school, we learn in flight training, we learn about all these things. But when it comes to applying it in our own industry, it's like, yeah, whatever. Let's just see what happens. So that to me is the crazy part of it, is like human factors thrive. Like it is aviation where it bloomed and blossomed in, right? And so we are one of the ones, the aviation industry is one of the industries that knows most about it. And yet,
Yeah. Barry, any closing thoughts from you?
No, I think in the grand scheme of things, it is really interesting. I'm really pleased that it's out there because I think it's one of these that hopefully it's like another block into the wall of us hopefully turning a corner on how we appreciate mental health. But I think, as Heidi quite rightly points out, we've still got a long way to go.
Yeah, we do. And Heidi, so thank you so much for requesting the story this week. I think we mentioned in the pre-show that we'll kind of take requests from guests if they're experts on the field and or have, you know, experience in it. And Heidi, I think today, like, you've really just taken this thing that we have I don't know, Barry and I would have had a very superficial conversation about it, I feel. I don't know, Barry, you seem to think differently. I guess I'm in a put Barry down kind of mood today. Put him in his place. But no, honestly, the experience that you bring to the table and the discussion that you bring is truly appreciated. So thank you to Heidi for selecting our topic this week, and thank you to our friends over at Scientific American for our news story this week. If you want to follow along, we do post links to all the original articles on our roundups and our blog. You can also join us on Discord for more discussion on these stories and much more. Speaking of Discord, I'm just going to make a quick little aside. We've got lots of chatter in there about the AI, generative AI in there from last week. So we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back to see what's going on in the Human Factors community right after this.
Human Factors Cast brings you the best in human factors news, interviews, conference coverage, and overall fun conversations into each and every episode we produce. But we can't do it without you. The Human Factors Cast network is 100% listener supported. All the funds that go into running the show come from our listeners. Our patrons are our priority, and we want to ensure we're giving back to you for supporting us. Pledges start at just $1 per month and include rewards like access to our weekly Q&As with the hosts, personalized professional reviews, and Human Factors Minute, a Patreon-only weekly podcast where the hosts break down unique, obscure, and interesting human factors topics in just 1 minute. Patreon rewards are always evolving, so stop by patreon.com/humanfactorscast to see what support level may be right for you. Thank you, and remember, it depends.
Hey, we love our patrons. Huge thank you, as always, to our patrons. We especially want to thank our honorary Human Factors Cast staff patron, Michelle Tripp. Patrons like you truly do keep the lights on and all of us running over here. And today we'd like to talk about our show sponsored here, and the new secretary wrote us a script to say, so I'm going to read this verbatim and see how this comes out. Are you a human factors, psychology, or design professional looking to get your message heard by thousands of others in the field? Look no further. Our podcast offers sponsorship opportunities where we will read 150 words of your choice on the show every week for the duration of your pledge. You will also be featured on our homepage and have a permanent link on our sponsor page on our website. We will announce your sponsorship on all our social media platforms and give you a special role in our Discord channel for direct communication with listeners. This tier is perfect for consulting agencies and companies hiring in the field, professional organizations looking to promote initiatives, and specialized hardware or software companies targeting human factors UX professionals as their core demographic. Act fast, as this offer is limited to one agency, organization, or company at a time and is subject to availability. If you have any questions about our sponsorship, please contact us at humanfactorscast.media/contact. Excellent job, Secretary. Love it. All right, we're going to switch gears and get into this next part of the show we like to call.
It came from.
That's right. This is the part of the show we like to call It Came From. This is where we search all over the internet to bring you all topics from the community, what everyone's talking about. It's the hubbub. If you find these answers useful, give us a like wherever you're watching or listening to help other people find this stuff. Our first one here tonight is by Design Jester on the User Experience subreddit. They write, I've done a bit of UX over my career and read a book or two, but wanted to pursue it properly full time. Despite being relatively new to the role, the agency has chosen to put a senior in my job title. Do you think this is a good thing, or could this lead to issues in the future when I apply for other positions? Barry, what do you think about being assigned the title senior, whatever it is that you're doing, when maybe you don't feel like a senior?
Oh, it's fine. Enjoy yourself. Knock yourself out. There's two ways to look at this. Firstly, look at it from the company perspective. If they're wanting to assign you, it does them good from a public perception to have seniors and principals and all these different titles. So on the public stage, it makes them look good, the fact that you're a senior designer, a senior UX designer. But make sure that if they are happy, to call you a senior, are you being paid at a senior rate? So just you can then use that to your advantage to make sure that you're getting paid commensurate with the title. The other bit as well is some people try and compare and contrast across different businesses on titles, and whilst there is you can sort of read across, a senior in one business might be the equivalent of a senior in another, or a principal in one, principal in another. They companies don't necessarily agree a finite set of criteria about what a senior involves. Each company will generally have their own criteria. So just because it sounds the same doesn't necessarily mean it is the same. Take them for all the money, I would. Heidi, what do you think? If you were given senior in your first job, would you be worried, or would you be happy and take it?
Well, for me, it's like there's a lot of things going on here, right? Because I obviously, as we all are very experienced now at this point in our careers, we're not beginners anymore. I look at it a little bit differently from other aspects too. Like sometimes you also don't know what headcount went open, right? And what they wanted to hire. So like if there's like a specific headcount that you have to use in order to hire that person, it might be connected to a certain title because a certain cost center is covering that job. So sometimes your titles also have a lot to do with politics and head counts and who's hiring and how can they get you on board, right? Um, as far as the senior goes, I don't know. If I was a beginner and I had the senior title, I would probably get a little too full of myself. But 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 I think just roll with it, right? Like it's not like I think the other way around would be harsher for me. I think I think if you were senior, right, and you're not getting the title, I think that's a little harsher. But if you're just getting the senior title because they don't actually know what they're hiring for, then just roll with it. Like try to learn as much as you can and try to get that experience that is like equivalent to your title if it's what you like, because from what the story I read, like it's not even something they did previously. So I'm not sure if that's even the job they want. So for now, I would just roll with it and see what the job really is because they might have just mistitled you.
Yeah.
Um, and you actually are doing your job, right? Um, and let's not forget UX is such a trend word right now that there is a lot of UX jobs out there that are not UX. So let's
Mhm.
be very clear on that. That's why I would say just roll with it for a couple of months, see what it really is. And if you think it is too much UX and you don't like it and you want to go back to what you actually did, then do that. I mean, if you're early in your career, then who cares? There's going to be a job around the corner the next month too.
Sounds like we're all kind of in agreement. It's fine. It's fine. You'll be fine. My comments on this are basically buckle in, buddy. You're in for a ride. If if you feel like you're maybe not qualified for that position, but also embrace it. They've assigned that to you based on what you put forward in the interview, and unless you were lying in the interview, I don't think you have anything to worry about. Work
Yeah.
hard, earn the title. That's
I mean, the only thing to say as the end to it is like, okay, well, if you're getting paid for a senior and they want you to do senior things and you can't meet that standard, it might get very anxiety ridden. Like a lot, there's going to be a lot of pressure. But also, if they're not paying you a senior salary and just giving you that title and then expect from you to perform as a senior, that's when I would start having conversations.
I would, yeah, exactly. Right. If you're not getting paid what the title says. All right. We got another one here from the UX research subreddit. This is by another sneaky Kiki. I studied comments. I, I, stu- I studied psych and it was recommended to look into UX. I know I'd have to do a boot camp, but I've heard it's hard to get a UX job in this market. Is there a type of job where I could get good introduction to the UX world? So, Heidi, what are your thoughts on this?
First of all, I'd like to know where that's happening. There's shortage of UX jobs. Um, I think the last time I checked, it was like 16,000 jobs were listed on LinkedIn and Indeed with the title UX in it. Number one, don't worry, there's plenty. Number two, you studied psych with a background in psych. I'm wondering why people are pushing you in UX. You should like look more into human factors because that would be an easier entry for you coming from the science-based things that you studied and transitioning into human factors would be a lot easier for you than going into UX because UX titles are often associated with a lot more designing things, kind of. So I would intro into human factors before that. So that would be my tip. Like I would be a little cautious of that.
That sounds fair. I do have this this thing around when they mentioned boot camps. I sort of shuddered slightly.
I didn't
I
want
think
to touch on it exactly for that, even though it's in my notes. I did not want to mention the boot camps.
I don't. I mean, I don't know. I have a sort of a hot and cold relationship with them, to be honest, because part of me thinks that yes, they're just to get a little bit of an umph into. Do I like to do something? I like this idea of a short, sharp thing, but we just seem to be so reliant on this idea of if you do a boot camp, then you know everything to do with the role. And he's like, not so much. But vocational training, absolutely. Let's do some of that. And so I think with this type of thing, I agree with you, Heidi. Look more into the human factors domain. I think you'll get a lot more satisfaction out of that. I do believe that UX is a bit of it is a trendy phrase at the moment, but I do think it hits a particular part of the human factors spectrum. And I think looking at them type of roles that are more, you can learn an awful lot on the job, and learn a variety of different things. And I can say that from experience. I've learned an awful lot from some amazing people, rather than just going straight down the academic route. But this idea that, similar to what you said, Heidi, in terms here in the UK, there are loads of UX and HF jobs out there. We are desperate for practitioners in the field. So it shouldn't be hard to get a job, quite frankly. Nick,
And
what do you
they're
think?
not shy about it.
Yeah, well, yes, that as well.
They're not shy about it. They don't care what your job title is or where you work. They will come and start recruit you underneath. It's just,
Hey,
I wouldn't
really
worry
quick.
about.
I'm going to jump in here and almost hijack this and talk about boot camps really quick, because you guys are both on it, right? I mean, like,
I'm sort of, I'm not. Yeah, I'm sort of. Yeah.
because look, like my opinion on boot camps has changed a little bit over the years. Because I used to be very.
Did you go to a boot camp and go?
I did not do it. No. Look. All right. Here's the thing with boot camps. Boot camps are made by people who want to make money off of you by saying, we can teach you everything about UX in one weekend. You want to do that? Yeah, come on, give me money. I can do that. Right. So that's kind of where I think about boot camps. However, there can be value in taking boot camps for the people who are trying to transfer into the UX or human factors field who have transferable skills. Now, you're not going to be operating at the same level as somebody who's had years and years of experience, but this is a good way for you to get your feet wet, introduced to a topic, to see if it's something that you really enjoy. Okay. So if it's an exploratory thing, you get in for one weekend, the commitment's very low. Okay. Now, I'm not saying that boot camps should be a replacement for a proper education, for experience. It's not going to get you that job from just taking it for one weekend, but it will give you a good sense of what's going on in the field, what current trends are, what you can expect from the field, and whether or not you want to pursue it. It can also be a good refresher for those people who want to transfer in from adjacent fields. So I'm with you in terms of using boot camps as the education. Fine. Yeah. But when it comes to using them as tools in your toolbox, don't overlook it. Like I wouldn't turn somebody away from a job position because they had boot camp on their resume. Just put it that way.
And now, if you look into the show notes, Nick's boot camp on UX design is going live Sunday, and we hope to see you all there.
God, can you imagine if I did use this as an opportunity to announce a boot camp? I'm not.
I would. This would be my last time on ever if you did that.
I now think there's a stream here that we should all just do a boot camp of some description. We should do a two-way boot camp. We should present a boot camp, and we should go and attend a boot camp, and then come back and discuss.
Yes, right, so I think so.
Hey, back to this question. I agree with you, Nick. Though I think, I mean, I never like touching on it. Like I never like bringing it up because it gets so convoluted in like, they are great, but they're only great for this one particular purpose. And then they get carried away. And I also, to your point, though, not every boot camp is great to get a first taste, right? Yeah. So I'd be very picky with which boot camp I'm choosing.
Exactly. Yeah, you got to do your research before you get. Yeah. Anyway, back to the question. I want to make sure I answer this. There is the question again, where can you get a good introduction to the UX world in terms of like beginner jobs? There's a weird flux in the market right now where people expect juniors to kind of know everything, at least from talking with other colleagues. There's some weird flux in the market, but internships are another good opportunity for you. If you want to look at internships, that is a place where people don't necessarily expect you to know everything. They expect you to be very junior, even more junior than junior positions, where you can kind of get in, learn something under somebody else's wing, get out, depending on the length and time duration of the internship. Okay. We got one more question. Let's get into it. This is by disastrous nature on the user experience subreddit. UX has a scientific component built upon psychology, engineering, design, etc., but without scientific training, boot camps, some may be unknowingly adopting pseudoscience into their work. What problematic or even dangerous pop science would you like UX and human factors professionals to stop using? Heidi, you're up.
Heidi, you're up. Well, I would like my biggest, no, scratch all of that. Cut, let's start again. I don't like when people do usability studies and then they say, well, we have proof, right? And let me elaborate on that. Because what you find in usability tests, when you have like 5 people in a usability test, you can see a trend. You can see something happening, right? You can see a response to a certain design feature, yada, yada, yada. All those things. Great. Awesome. That's what usability testing is for. But what I want people to stop doing is conducting inexperienced people moderating and conducting usability tests and then intertwining their already perceived notion of what isn't and is working on the design, and then just cherry picking the answers from users and participants to support what they want to be supported, right? Because that is not scientific. That is what we call humbug. That is BS. That is, I can make that up in my sleeve. I can cherry pick anything from the internet and say that supports what I want to say, right? So I think that's where I get really frustrated sometimes when I see this like UX intertwined with HF, and then because I work in medical device development, I work in something that is highly regulated. Like, I am not going to make the statement of this supports this. My sentences start with this may potentially indicate that, because I don't have proof for it yet. Because if you want to have proof for it, you gotta like design your study to be repeatable on a scientific basis. You gotta put up a hypothesis and you got to prove it and you got to use real statistics, right? So that is my biggest pet peeve. Like, I do not like it.
Barry.
That's fair. I mean, actually, the way you describe it, Heidi, is I would say that's politics. That's exactly what politicians do. But anyway, this is one of the reasons why I think actually human factors is such a cool discipline. It's so young that we know that we want to base it in scientific discipline. But I think two that get me going is Myers-Briggs. When you do let's say sort of Myers-Briggs assessments and you come out with the personality types. And the irony is that actually most people who do a Myers-Briggs and come out with, like, say, ENTJ or whatever this sort of thing, it's broad enough that actually most people will have affordance with what they've come out with. And if you use it as a bit of an icebreaker or something like that, that's where I think it actually has value. It does, because it means you can go through things. You get, if you're not used to self-assessment and things like that, it's actually a really good thing to be a bit self-reflective and come out with some sort of result. It's when you get so serious about the result and think that that's what you and will never change over time. That's where you're starting to get into problems as well. Maslow's hierarchy of needs is another one where I use that quite a lot in lectures and stuff because I find it fascinating. But if you go too deep into it, you automatically uncover problems with it. But there's a high level bit of a discussion piece. Then I find them useful. They're useful guides, or useful talking points. We don't necessarily have to take everything quite so seriously. It's a bit like you said, Heidi. You've got to know where the boundaries of what you're discussing are there. Nick, what about you? What do you what do you hate doing?
I think there's a tendency to rely on research a lot in some instances where once they get comfortable with what research can do, they almost see it as a crutch and say, oh, well, we need to do research on this before we can actually move forward. And it's not like, well, no, we have answers to this because of science that we've done in the past, based on years of scientific literature. We don't need to do a research study on how this might affect our our software, right? Like we can do this without the research. Like I can tell you what the answer is because we've seen it before. And we develop models and equations that get at this thing. So stop using research as a crutch. I think that's kind of the thing that I would say. It's not necessarily pop science, but you don't need research for everything. And maybe that's me griping. Anyway, we're at this last part of the show we like to call One More Thing. It needs no introduction. And I think tonight, One More Thing will be like 20-second sound bites since we're almost at time. So Heidi, your 20-second sound bite, One More Thing.
Myers-Briggs. Now that you brought it up, Barry, like I'm just gonna go and change it. Like I would like everybody to go on the internet and educate themselves how the Myers-Briggs was developed and how it's a bunch of BS about how some lady who is bored, who looked into this, decided to come up with all these things and personality traits, and they are not scientifically proven. Nothing in it is scientific. Nothing. Nothing. She did absolutely nothing following scientific principles. So the Myers-Briggs, yeah, great. Icebreaker, I would say nope. I hate icebreaker games. I wish they would stop doing that when you get hired. I hate this stupid sitting in a circle with a new team and let's all go through and answer one high and one low and do this and do that. Like we absolutely forget that most people are not extroverts. Like as much as we all want to believe that we're all such great extroverts, we're not, especially not in the scientific community. So stop going around asking me about my Myers-Briggs results or playing icebreaker games when it's my first day at work and I'm already intimidated and I live with anxiety-driven fears that you're all going to hate me anyway. So there's my one more thing.
Now, Nick loves a good icebreaker, so and actually mine sort of follows on from that. I went to a lecture this week on the art of science communication, and the fact that we don't have that, we automatically assume just because we know something, the fact that other people should as well, and the breadth of how conspiracy theories evolve and all this sort of stuff. And really, the driving force was that we as science communicators, within the full breadth of it, need to also have an extra bit of teaching about how we communicate that science, which I think here on podcasts like this, we are obviously amazing examples of doing this. But actually, we are few and far between. There's not enough science communicators out there, and we need more of them. Nick, what about you? What's your one more thing?
I got into pegboarding. Got him. I bought a pegboard.
There's your soundbite for today.
Yeah, exactly. You knew what I was doing. I bought a pegboard on sale on Black Friday because one thing that's been sort of an issue for me is that I can't find any of my tools despite me having certain places for them. It's part of ADHD. And yeah, right. And so I bought a pegboard. Okay, guys, come on. It's the end of the show. I bought a pegboard so that way I can see everything visually where it lives, and I can just reach out and go, oh, hairdryer. Boom. There it is. It's a pegboard.
So the all
nice.
So of all the things on your pegboard, different colors, and right, okay.
And that's going to be it for today, everyone. If you liked the story this week and enjoy some of the discussion about the human factors issues around mental health, I'll encourage you to go listen to episode 236, where we talk about better defining the term mental health. Comment wherever you're listening with what you think of the story this week. Did you like having Heidi on for that? I sure did. For more in-depth discussion, join us on our Discord community. Like I said, it's lighting up over there with a bunch of discussion about generative AI. Visit our official website, sign up for our newsletter, stay up to date with all the latest human factors news. If you like what you hear, you want to support the show, there's a couple ways you can do that. 1, just keep on listening. 2, you can leave us a 5-star review wherever you are right now. That is really helpful and free for you to do. 3, you can tell your friends about us. That also helps, that word of mouth. And 4, if you have the financial means to want to become a show sponsor, I don't know, or if you want access to Human Factors Minute, become a patron. That really does help us financially. So that's probably the best way you can support us. As always, links to all of our socials and our website are in the description of this episode. Heidi Mehrzad, thank you so much for being on the show today. Where can our listeners go and find you if they want to talk about more of your experience?
LinkedIn, Insta, and Twitter, all HFUX research, and you should be able to find me on any of those, and the company or anybody who works at my company to have fun conversations about human factors.
Awesome. Barry, Kirby, thank you for being on the show today. Where can our listeners go and find you if they want to talk about where your mind went when I said pegboards?
So if you want to find out more about Nick's pegboard and my thoughts on that, then you can find me at Twitter. Twitter's still there at the moment, so at Baz_K. Or if you want to come and listen to good interviews with practitioners within the human factors field, then you can find me at 1202 The Human Factors Podcast, which is at 1202podcast.com.
As for me, I've been your host, Nick Roome. You can find me on our Discord and across social media at Nick_Roome. Thanks again for tuning in to Human Factors Cast. Until next time, it depends.
It depends.
Pegboards. Got him!
Oh, maybe not.
Came off so naturally, right?
That's what she said.
Oh, that was a good one. That's going to make a good good little short.
I would follow it up with it exactly that.
You know what's funny? As I was reaching, not funny.
Reaching what? So like a peak?
No, it's I got hurt. I got injured as I was reaching for that hair dryer.
Is that what you call it?
Yes, no, it is. I hit my multi-tool. Okay, I hit my multi-tool. Shut up. I hit my multi-tool and cut open my finger. So now I'm bleeding. And
well,
if I suddenly pass out on the show, that's what's happening. Anyway, hey, for those of you, okay, nice one. For those of you who are watching along with the post show, we're gonna cut this a little short. Barry and I have to go away, and we got to record some things. So, I guess let's just do final thoughts. Let's just do a round of final thoughts. How'd the show go? What are we thinking? Where do we go from here? That type of thing. What's up? I don't know.
I think from my perspective, it was a good show. It's obviously a very different dynamic. Actually, having somebody on who knows what they're talking about makes
right, exactly.
Makes our lives very easy. And actually, I learned a load tonight. So
I did too.
I think that was really cool. It'll be interesting to see. It'll be interesting to follow the story actually and see what the FAA do, and also what other disciplines do around it. Because as we alluded to, it is pilots, but it's also a bunch of other disciplines. I mean, the military is full of this as well. So it's almost that we cover up the fact that we might have frailties, and I guess they're largely testosterone historically masculine driven careers or disciplines, and actually they need to break themselves out and open themselves up.
Well, I mean, that's what it is. It's insidious in all of these industries that are, quote unquote, testosterone driven, but we used to call type A, right? Type A jobs, right? Being a surgeon, being a pilot, being, like all these high level military, a commander, military leader, like all these type A jobs, right? That were traditionally formed by the patriarchy to be only held by powerful men, and godlike men. And so all these jobs, all these industries are insidious with that problem. So it's not any different in the military than it is in aviation, than it is in surgery, right? Like you can't report that you have mental health issues if you're a neurosurgeon. Like, are you kidding me? Like, what's going to happen there? Which another field that is deep rooted in alcoholism, right? Surgeons, right? I mean, how many stories have I read about, this is scary, but like anesthesiologists falling asleep during surgeries because all they do is monitor, and they're like, and mishaps happen, so I don't know. My thoughts on the podcast, I think it was really good. I don't want people to think that like I'm an expert on it. I just happened to go through it, and it turned me off so much that I didn't want to pursue the job anymore. I don't think that came through enough, that like it literally can also put a damper on that. But I mean, let's face it, I wasn't I wasn't necessarily the greatest material to be a commercial pilot. Like, I never saw myself going to be able to fly from A to B on a schedule. Like, it was never going to be my thing. So I do hope they're going to change things. And I'd actually be interested to see if we get any response from people who are still in it and who started maybe among the time I did. And I want to see if like something happened. I mean, I only have 2 friends left who still actively fly, but they're not that like mental health thing. Like,
Yes. It'd be interesting. I mean, I think I've got quite a few people on my Twitter who are current pilots and actually pilots and medical. And it'll be interesting if I tag them into it and see what sort of response they have if they the next episode. So
I'll
I
hit it
mean,
with all the pilot hashtags when I throw them out there.
yeah, and in my research, what I did see, like that actually was a shock for me. So that's why I wanted to bring it up, because that post-pandemic salary increase is insane. Holy moly, what they get paid now versus like 10 years ago, like you knew you weren't going to make money. But apparently they're paying like up to like $56,000 entry jobs. Like, I know that's not a lot to some people, but like back then when you were faced with making $17,000 getting hired by WestJet, you know, or whatever, that's like a huge jump. So that alone should be able to maybe foster a more positive environment. So that's interesting.
Let's not get ahead of ourselves here, but
Little
hey,
steps.
Look, Heidi, one last note here. You know, you may not have made it in the pilot as a pilot, but your experience has made it so that you made it on the show tonight. I am super grateful for that. So that way you could talk about this story seriously and honestly, because your experience probably resonates with a bunch of other people out there that you know may be experiencing this too, and bringing awareness to it is important. Anyway, we're gonna wrap up here tonight, but we'll be back again next week. Heidi, thanks for joining us. Barry, I will send you a link shortly, and we'll go from there. Good night.
Have fun recording your things.
Yeah. Good night, everybody.